Let's go.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Your boy JT here. I don't have Dub with me today. He's on paternity leave. He'll be back with us really soon. But listen, this is in any arena. We got to talk about it. Spence Crawford, the fight of really the decade. We got two welterweights. This is going to be for undisputed unification of all the titles. You know, as we know it, Spence has the WBA, the IBF, and the WBC titles. Crawford has the WBO title. So we just want to break down how we feel like the fight will go. I try not to be biased. I've been honest up front. I feel like Spence is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. I probably put him at number 4 or 5 on the pound for pound list. No lower than that. Crawford is still, top 10 pound for pound guy as well. I'm just happy we're getting to see this fight. It's not too often guys want to put their zero on the line and fight the best in their division. But lately, this past year, we've been getting that all over the place in boxing. We had a great fight earlier this week. Stephen Fulton and Inu, and we saw him get knocked out. We got some great fights on the undercard of this fight as well. But let's just break it down. Let's get into it. I don't want to belabor it too long. I'm going to get the strengths and the weaknesses of both fighters and kind of talk through what I see happening in the fight. So when it comes to Bud Crawford, I think his advantages in this fight are his reach. He has a 74-inch reach, little more than Spence at 72. I think Crawford is better in terms of his dynamics. He is, a guy who can go from orthodox to southpaw. In a lot of fights, we've seen him start orthodox, move to southpaw in later rounds, and really, confuse some of his opponents in doing that. I would also give Crawford the advantage in terms of counterpunching. So I think he's a guy who can lead and bring the fight to whoever he's competing against, but he's also a great counterpuncher. So I think that we'll see a lot of that. A guy who stays in the gym. He's a gym rat. He's been committed to the sport for years on years. We've seen him move up in weight, and in moving up in weight from 135 to 140 to now to welterweight, we see him actually gain power, I would say. So that's, to his advantage. I think all of that will be to his advantage in this fight. Accuracy and precision are things you think about when you think about Crawford as well. A very skilled fighter, a guy who, again, is no slap. So when I'm saying that I think Errol has the advantage, it's no, it's no disrespect to Crawford. Crawford, I think, also has the advantage in terms of his lateral movement. You see him move around a lot in the fight. Very disciplined when it comes to the accuracy and precision of the shots that he throws, especially with that jab to the body. We talk about Spence's advantages. The biggest advantage he has in this fight is that he's the bigger guy, right? I think Spence could easily fight at 154. I don't think it would be a problem for him to move up to 154. I think very soon we will see him move up to 154. So I think that's something that we have to take into account. Um, Spence isn't a pressure guy who's just after the fighter for the entire fight, but he does provide relentless pressure over time. He's very methodical in terms of how he calculates and adjusts the fighters during the fight. So I think that's an advantage he has. He keeps it simple. He's a fundamentals guy. And, when it comes to boxing, you want to be a guy who has the fundamentals and who can just take that into a fight, who can be consistent with that, regardless of what the other fighter is doing, and win the fight in that way. I think his adaptability is one of the attributes of his boxing IQ that doesn't get a lot of credit. I think in the Ugis fight we saw that. Ugis is a guy who I felt like can bring a lot of pressure. Tried to bring pressure to Spence. He did pressure him at times, and it worked. But throughout that, Spence was downloading information, was adaptable in terms of what he was doing, in the fight. The weakness I see here is that Spence has taken time off. He's been in a car accident, had some permanent damage from that to his retina. So does that impact him in this fight? I don't think so. I think we've seen him grow stronger with his defense against Ugis, with his defense against Danny Garcia. I think he's gotten better over time. He's continued to strengthen his body from the accident. Of course, again, we said it's permanent damage, so it's not like he can repair, some of those issues, but he's got to protect himself. I think he's a better defensive fighter than Crawford, and we'll see that tomorrow night. So let's get down to it. Both of these guys together have combined for 12 title defenses, 6 apiece. Um, if I have to make a prediction, right? A lot of guys have been saying this is a 50-50 fight. I mean, every fight to some extent is 50-50, right? So I think that's just a cop-out way of guys not wanting to make the wrong pick. For me, I think this is a fight that early on we see more exchanges than we've seen lately with big fights where guys are trying to really download each other. I think this could come into an all-out brawl early on in the fight. There's a lot of bad blood between the camps. There's been a lot of talk ongoing, and both guys are out to prove that they are the better fighter. I see this fight going into the later rounds, and at that point, I believe that Errol will begin to walk down Bud Crawford. I think over time, the body shots, the jabs to the body, the physicality, the pressure. Again, it's not relentless pressure, that we'll see from Spence, but he'll be consistent in the pressure, and I think he'll be consistently coming forward against Bud. I think over time, he said he's going to break him, and I don't think it's a situation where Bud won't be probably neck and neck on the cards or potentially ahead on the cards at the time this happens. But I see a late stoppage in the fight going to Spence as a high possibility. But again, I got to err to the side of the guys that saying it's a 50-50 fight. If it doesn't go that way, I could see it going to the cards, and I see a split decision win for Spence. So those are the two potential outcomes that I see in the fight. Now, could Bud win this fight? It's very possible. I think there's a scenario where Bud, with his high boxing IQ, and the reach advantage, the versatility advantage in terms of being able to go from orthodox to southpaw. I think there is a scenario in which he's able to simply outbox Spence. He's able to keep the distance, to jab when he needs to effectively outbox Spence in this fight. He's very methodical in that way. There's a possibility it goes that way. But for the simple fact that I think there's so much bad blood, I think this fight is going to be a brawl. We're going to see an old school fight, as Spence likes to call it. So I don't think he takes that route. I think he takes the route of brawling and showing that he can fight with Spence and that he has as much speed, if not more speed, probably more speed than Spence, and just as much power as Spence, because Crawford grew up wrestling. So again, he is a fighter who, a lot of his strength is in his lower body versus being in his upper body and the shoulders and whatnot. So I think that is a possible scenario. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just happy we're getting a great fight. But again, my call is either Spence late decision stoppage or Spence split decision on the cards. Listen, if you like the content we drop here on In the Arena, we need you to do 3 things for us. Give us that CLS treatment, comment, like, subscribe. We'll be back with more from In the Arena.